I never imagined I'd be the type to air my personal problems online, but I need to get this off my chest. This isn't some over-the-top soap opera or a scene out of a Hollywood movie. It's my real life, messy and full of betrayal. If you've ever had your heart broken, you'll understand exactly what I mean. This is about a wife who turned on me, revenge, and yeah, maybe a bit of foolishness on my part. But everything I'm saying is 100% true. No exaggerations. Let me get straight to the point. My wife cheated on me, and the worst part? It wasn't for love or passion. She did it for money. She got involved with a guy who could give her the things I couldn't, expensive, flashy things. The kind of luxury items I couldn't provide. Looking back, I feel like such a fool for not seeing it sooner. She played me, and I let her. But let's rewind and start from the beginning. My name doesn't matter for now, but let's just say I'm an ordinary guy. I work in IT. It's not glamorous, but it keeps a roof over our heads. For as long as I can remember, I've wanted to break out of the corporate grind and do my own thing. I've always dreamed of building something in tech, maybe an app or starting a consulting business. Just something to make a name for myself. But of course, dreams require money, and that's where some of the issues began. And then came Ella, my wife. Or should I say, my ex-wife now. Ella was the kind of woman who always attracted attention. She had long, dark hair that fell perfectly into place every time, a smile that could melt anyone's heart, and a body that made most men lose their focus. She knew she was beautiful, and trust me, she took full advantage of it. When we first met, I thought I was the luckiest guy in the world. She seemed perfect, fun, smart, and yes, she liked nice things, but I figured, who doesn't want to treat themselves sometimes? In the beginning, it was little things. A designer handbag here, a pair of expensive shoes there. I didn't think too much of it because I thought maybe I wasn't making enough, and I needed to work harder. But as time passed, I started noticing a pattern. She wasn't just into fashion, she was obsessed with it. It was all about high-end, luxury brands. The kind of stuff you see in influencer feeds on Instagram. She'd talk about how she deserved the best, not because she just looked great, but because, in her eyes, beauty was a currency. That was a lesson I learned way too late. Don't get me wrong, we weren't living paycheck to paycheck. We weren't struggling to make ends meet, but I wasn't exactly swimming in cash either. My job was stable and we had a nice apartment, but I couldn't afford $1,500 phones and $600 blouses every other week. That's when things started getting tense. We'd fight about money, but it was never a real, constructive conversation. She'd make snarky comments, like, it'd be nice to actually go on a real vacation for once, maybe somewhere exotic, or, I saw this amazing dress today. I'd look so good in it, but I guess I'll wait until we can afford it. It drove me up the wall. I was working myself to the bone trying to save for our future, while she treated life like one big shopping spree she wasn't getting to fully enjoy. I tried explaining that we needed to stick to a budget, but she'd just go silent. And that silence? It was the worst. It made me feel like I wasn't enough, like I was failing her. So I started picking up side gigs. Freelance work, extra jobs, anything to bring in more cash. I had this idea for a tech startup that I thought could really take off, but we were stuck in this cycle of financial stress. Every time I thought I was getting ahead, something else would come up. Usually, it was her asking for something new. It felt like she had an insatiable hunger for things we didn't need. And then came the first major warning sign. The phone. We were having dinner one evening. Nothing special. We were just having a casual dinner, some pasta and wine at our little kitchen table. Her phone was right there beside her plate, and as I reached for the bread, I accidentally brushed against it. Out of nowhere, she grabbed her phone like it was a ticking time bomb. I froze. Her reaction was so strange. I jokingly asked, "Got something to hide?" But I meant it. She shot me this cold, emotionless look I'd never seen before. "No," she replied, flat and defensive. "Everyone deserves their own space. You don't need to touch my stuff." That rubbed me the wrong way. We'd never kept secrets from each other before. At least, I thought we hadn't. But that night, I realized something had changed. Something wasn't right, and I couldn't figure out what it was. From then on, her phone was like a fortress. She carried it everywhere, even to the bathroom. And she didn't just carry it. She clutched it, like she was terrified I might get too close and uncover whatever she was hiding. I didn't want to be the paranoid husband, the one who goes through his wife's phone, but something was eating at me. One day, when she was at work, I found her phone sitting on the kitchen counter. My heart was racing as I picked it up. Locked? Of course, it was locked. But it wasn't her usual passcode, it had been changed. I didn't know how to process the anger and confusion I felt. I put the phone back, trying to act like nothing had changed, but deep down, I knew everything had. Then came the handbag. You know what they say, the devil's in the details? Well, in this case, it was a handbag. She had a new purse she'd been showing off, claiming it was a really good fake she bought online. But my curiosity got the best of me. I was alone in the apartment one afternoon, staring at that bag like it was mocking me. I couldn't help myself. I grabbed it and Googled the brand. Turns out, that good fake was actually the real deal. $3,000 retail. I couldn't believe it. I sat on the couch, scrolling through every detail, serial numbers, stitching patterns, everything. It was authentic. And that's when it all started to fall into place. The phone, the clothes, the shoes. She wasn't buying knockoffs. She wasn't making these purchases with her own money. Someone else was footing the bill. That night, I confronted her. Is this bag real? I asked, holding it up like I was presenting evidence in court. She didn't hesitate for a second. No, of course not. It's a really good copy. You can't even tell the difference, can you? But this time, I wasn't buying it. I knew the truth. She was lying to my face, and I felt like a complete fool for believing her all this time. I didn't want to fight, not yet anyway. I needed more proof. I needed to know for sure. And once I had that, everything was going to change. This was just the start. I didn't know how deep the lies went, but I was about to find out. So here's where things really start to get intense. After the handbag situation, I knew I couldn't just sit back and act like everything was normal. I couldn't keep pretending while my wife, Ella, the woman I thought I knew, was out there lying straight to my face. But I didn't want to confront her without being certain of the facts. I had to catch her in the act. One morning, I had the day off, but Ella didn't know that. She was up early, dressed in one of her usual perfectly put-together outfits, her makeup flawless, acting like she was headed to work. That's when the idea hit me. What if I followed her? If she was lying, I'd catch her in the act. Worst case, she really was going to work, and I'd be wrong. She kissed me goodbye, grabbed her bag, and walked out the door. I waited a few minutes, just to make sure she wouldn't suspect anything. Then I followed her. I kept my distance, but my heart was racing like I was in a spy movie. My hands were sweating, and my mind was spinning with all sorts of questions. What if she wasn't going to work? What if she was meeting someone else? What if? Then it happened. She didn't go to her job. In fact, she didn't even head that way. I followed her for about 10 minutes, but then I lost sight of her. She got into a taxi, and before I could get close enough to catch the license plate number, it sped off. I stood there, watching the taillights disappear, feeling like the world was crumbling beneath me. But I wasn't about to give up. I went to her workplace and asked around. I saw one of the employees I recognized, someone I'd met a few times before, probably at office parties or when I'd pick Ella up from work. I tried to play it cool when I walked into the office, asking if Ella was around or if maybe she was on break. But then, the bombshell dropped. The woman at the front desk casually said, "Oh, she doesn't work here anymore." I froze. What do you mean? I stammered, my voice barely steady. She hasn't worked here for at least 3 months. I thought you knew. 3 months? Ella had been getting up every day, dressed and ready like she was going to work, and for 3 months, she hadn't even had a job. It was like the floor had been yanked out from under me. I thanked the woman quickly and left, my mind reeling with 1,000 thoughts. Anger began to build inside me, like a pressure cooker about to explode. I wanted to go home, wait for her, and confront her right there. This wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about trust. She had been lying to me every day, and I couldn't stand it anymore. I couldn't keep my anger contained, so I called my best friend, George, and unloaded everything on him. "I'm done with this, George," I said, gripping the steering wheel. "I'm going to confront her tonight. She has no idea what's coming." But George, being the rational one, told me to calm down. "Dude, don't do anything stupid. You realize your marriage is hanging by a thread, right? If you blow up now, you might never find out the full truth." His words made me stop and think. What if there was more to this than I knew? What if I went off without getting all the facts? As much as I hated it, George had a point. I wasn't ready to walk away from my marriage without knowing the full story. "I need your help," I told him. "I need to figure out what's really going on." George agreed, and we made a plan. The next day, I'd go about my usual routine, pretending to go to work. But instead, George and I would follow her. He had a better car for this kind of thing, tinted windows, smooth ride, perfect for tailing someone without being noticed. So that's exactly what we did. I got up, dressed for work, kissed Ella goodbye like everything was normal, and walked out the door. But instead of heading to my office, I met George at the corner, hopped into his car, and we followed her. She took a taxi again, and this time, we were right behind her. She didn't go to some random hotel or a friend's place. Nope. The taxi pulled into one of the wealthiest neighborhoods in the city, gated communities, mansions, the kind of place where people didn't just have a nice car. They had a collection of them. Ella stepped out of the taxi, scanning her surroundings like she was making sure no one was watching. She walked up to one of those fancy houses, and here's the kicker, she didn't ring the doorbell or knock. She pulled out a key and unlocked the door, like she owned the place. George and I sat in the car, parked across the street, watching in disbelief. The house was massive, with a driveway that screamed money. We sat there for hours, trying to make sense of what was happening. Finally, as the sun was setting, the door opened again. Ella stepped outside, but this time, she wasn't alone. A man followed her out. Tall, well-dressed, probably in his mid-40s, with the kind of confidence that screamed wealth. He had his arm around her, like they were a couple, like this wasn't the first time they'd done this. George quickly pulled out his phone and snapped a photo. "Let's see who this guy is," he muttered as we started searching for him online. It didn't take long. The man walking with my wife was a real estate mogul, big-time businessman, known all over the place. Articles, interviews, charity events, the whole 9 yards. And the cherry on top? We found his Instagram. Plenty of pictures of him, all right. But none of them were with Ella. No, his feed was full of photos with a completely different woman, his wife. I felt like I was going to throw up. There it was, the proof I had been dreading. My wife, the woman I'd been living with, sleeping beside, and planning a future with, had been leading a double life. And this man? He wasn't just some random fling, he was married too. George and I sat there in silence, the reality of everything settling in. We couldn't make a move yet. Not without more. I had to go home, act like everything was normal, like I hadn't just watched my wife walk out of another man's house. I couldn't lose control, not yet. I told George, we'll deal with it tomorrow. But tonight? I had to keep it together. I had to go home and pretend like I didn't know anything. So that's exactly what I did. I went home, walked through the door, and kissed her like nothing had changed. But deep down, I knew everything had. The image of Ella walking out of that house with another man stayed with me. My mind was racing, working overtime. I couldn't just let this go. But what should I do? Blowing up at her seemed like the wrong move for now. I needed more answers. That's when the idea hit me. What about the businessman? I couldn't stop thinking about him. His face. His life on display for everyone to see. His Instagram profile, full of pictures, but none with Ella. I went back to his page, scrolled through his posts again, trying to make sense of it all. I sat there, scrolling through his Instagram, getting more and more unsettled. His life was a picture of luxury, vacations to exotic places, fine dining, the kind of lifestyle people only dreamed of. But the most striking thing was the woman beside him in every photo. She wasn't flashy or materialistic like Ella, but had a kind of quiet, understated elegance. It didn't take long to find her. She was tagged in several of his posts. Curious, I clicked on her profile. It was private, but that didn't matter to me. I wasn't here to go through her posts. I had a more direct approach in mind. I sat there for a moment, contemplating how to word the message. I didn't want to come off as a crazy person, but I needed to make sure she understood the gravity of the situation. So I kept it simple. Hi, I'm reaching out because I have some important information about your husband. I'd rather not say too much over a message, but can we meet? I think it's something you'd want to know, and we can meet in a public place, whatever makes you feel comfortable. I sent it, then waited, not sure if she'd even respond. But she did. It didn't take long. Within the hour, she replied, agreeing to meet the next day at a busy cafe downtown. The next day, I arrived early, feeling like a bundle of nerves. I had no idea what to expect. Would she be angry? Would she think I was lying? When she walked in, I was struck by how calm and composed she was. She had the same quiet grace I'd seen in her photos. We exchanged polite small talk before I told her everything, how I'd followed Ella, the house, the photos, everything about her husband's affair with my wife. She listened attentively, her face neutral. When I finished, she took a deep breath and said, I need to check this out for myself. Give me your number, and I'll be in touch. There was no visible shock on her face, no breakdown. It was as though she had expected this, or, at the very least, wasn't surprised by the revelation. She stood up, thanked me for telling her, and left. I sat there, wondering if I had done the right thing. A week passed, and it was the hardest week of my life. I had to pretend everything was normal at home, act like I didn't know what Ella was doing. Every kiss goodbye felt like a knife twisting in my gut. Then, a week later, the call came. "Can you come to my house?" she asked, her voice calm too calm. I knew something was up. I agreed, and later that day, I found myself pulling up to her house. It was massive, much more elegant than the apartment Ella and I shared. She greeted me at the door, and as I stepped inside, she led me to the living room. A bottle of wine was on the table, 2 glasses beside it, but this wasn't going to be a casual conversation. "I hired a detective," she said, getting straight to the point. "He confirmed what you told me. My husband has been renting that house for months, meeting your wife there, and buying her expensive things, jewelry, clothes, phones, the whole lot." She poured herself a glass of wine, took a long sip, and looked me dead in the eyes. "I'm going to ruin him," she said, her voice cold and matter-of-fact. "He thinks he can get away with this, but he has no idea who he's dealing with." Her words hit me like a punch. This wasn't a woman who would sit back and let her husband walk all over her. She had a plan, and it wasn't going to be pretty for him. She finished her wine and refilled her glass, then turned to me. "Do you want some wine?" she asked. I nodded. I wasn't about to turn it down. We both needed something to take the edge off. We talked for a while after that. She told me about her life, how her father had started the business her husband now ran. Her father was a powerful, wealthy man whose name alone could open doors. She didn't mention his name directly, but I could tell it was better that way. This woman had been born into privilege, and she knew exactly how to use it. After a few drinks, the conversation started flowing easier. She was smart, sharp, and honestly a little intimidating. Then, without any build-up or pretense, she asked me something I wasn't expecting. "Do you want to be with me?" It wasn't seductive or flirtatious. It was just a question, plain and simple. I stared at her for a moment, thrown off by the bluntness, but then it clicked. I didn't need to think too hard. "Yes," I said. The next hour or so was a blur of heat and intensity. She was experienced, no doubt about it. She knew exactly what she wanted, and she took it. There was no hesitation, no guilt. It felt almost transactional, but I didn't care. I was too wrapped up in the moment, too lost in the escape from everything that had been tearing me apart. When it was over, I left her house feeling strangely satisfied. Not just but from the feeling that, for once, I had control over something in this whole mess. She wasn't just a scorned wife. She was a woman on a mission, and now, I was a part of that mission, whether I liked it or not. When I got home that night, after everything that had happened with the businessman's wife, I couldn't keep pretending anymore. The moment I walked through the door, I knew it was time to confront Ella. I wasn't going to play it cool anymore, not after what I'd seen, not after what I knew. I slammed the door behind me, and the sound startled her. She turned to look at me with wide eyes, like she knew exactly what was coming. "We need to talk," I said, my voice low but trembling with anger. She barely glanced up from her phone, still scrolling, still acting like nothing was wrong. But I wasn't having it. I marched right up to her and laid it all out there. "I know everything," I said, my voice rising with anger. "I know about the businessman, the house, the lies. Do you really think I'm that stupid? You're a fucking fool if you thought I wouldn't find out." That definitely got her attention. She dropped her phone, stood up, and her face twisted into a mixture of anger and disgust. But she didn't even try to deny it. "So what?" she snapped, crossing her arms. "I don't need you. I haven't needed you for a long time. You're just a placeholder. He's the one providing for me now. He loves me. He's going to leave his wife, and we're going to be together." The audacity of it all hit me like a freight train. She was standing there, proudly telling me that she had been waiting for him to leave his wife for her. It was pathetic. "You really think he's going to leave his wife for you?" I asked, bitterly laughing. "You're delusional." She glared at me, arms crossed, as if she couldn't understand why I wasn't bowing down to her fantasy. "He will," she insisted. "You'll see." "I'm filing for divorce," I said, my voice dead serious. "You can stay in your little dream world, but I'm done with this. We're done." She scoffed. "Good. You should have done that a long time ago." Without another word, she grabbed her bag, tossed a few things into it, and walked out the door, cold, indifferent, no apology, no remorse. It was like I hadn't mattered at all. But she had no idea what was about to hit her in just a few days. A few days later, everything came crashing down for her and her beloved businessman. His wife, the woman with quiet power, wasn't just sitting around after our conversation. She was plotting her revenge. With the help of her father, she took down her husband's business, ripping it apart piece by piece, leaving him with nothing. I didn't bother asking for the details. I heard bits and pieces through the grapevine, but I didn't care. All I knew was that Ella's fantasy life shattered as quickly as it had begun. As for me, I filed for divorce. It moved faster than I'd expected, and Ella didn't fight it. Why would she? She'd already moved on, or at least she thought she had. Then, out of nowhere, I got another call from the businessman's wife. She invited me to come see her again. I didn't know what to expect, but I went. When I arrived, she poured me a glass of wine, and we sat down in her living room. So, she said, her calm, calculating gaze locking onto mine, "What do you want in exchange for all this information?" At first, I told her I didn't want anything. I was just glad to see the truth come out. But then, I thought about it. I'd been stuck in a dead-end job for far too long. I had an idea I'd been sitting on for a while, something that had potential. "There is one thing," I said. "I have a startup idea. It's still rough, but it's got potential." She listened closely, and when I finished explaining, she shook her head. "No," she said flatly. "Not like this. Come back tomorrow with a solid plan." I didn't waste time. I spent the entire night working on it, refining the idea, shaping it, turning it into something real. The next day, when I went back to her house, she wasn't alone. There was another man with her, a business analyst. He listened to my pitch, asked a few questions, and then turned to her and whispered something in her ear. She nodded slowly, then turned to me. "All right," she said, looking at me with a serious gaze. "I'll invest, but I want 35% of the business if it becomes profitable." I was stunned. I knew she was powerful, but I didn't think she'd actually take me seriously. This was more than I had ever hoped for. Without hesitation, I agreed to her terms. And now, here I am, sitting in my office, writing this update, while I put together a team to get my startup off the ground. I can't go into details yet, but I know it's going to be profitable. I can feel it. Funny how life works. What started as the worst time of my life is now turning into something that could change everything for me. Sometimes life takes you down a road you never expected, but maybe that's the point. You never know what's waiting for you on the other side. It's been about a year since everything went down, and looking back, it feels like a lifetime ago. I'm sitting here in my office, my office, writing this, and I can't help but feel a mix of pride and disbelief at how much my life has changed. Things are good. Really good. And I owe a lot of that to the lessons I learned during the darkest time of my life. Let me start with the business. The startup I mentioned? It took off faster than I ever expected. The woman who invested in me, the businessman's ex-wife, kept her word. She gave me the capital I needed, and I built a team that believed in my vision. It wasn't easy. Those first few months were brutal, late nights, endless meetings, tweaking the product until it was just right. But it all paid off. The business is thriving. We've got a steady stream of clients, and we're growing at a rate I didn't think was possible when I was just dreaming about this idea. And before you ask, my relationship with her, the investor, is strictly professional. She's sharp, no nonsense, and keeps everything business-focused. We meet regularly, but it's always about the company. No hidden agendas. No awkward moments. None of that drama from before. We've both moved on, and it works. Now, let's talk about my ex-wife, Ella. Yeah, she came crawling back. I didn't think she would, not after how things ended between us. But once the news about my business started spreading, she suddenly remembered I existed. It started with a simple message. "Hey, how have you been?" Like she hadn't blown up our lives and walked out on me for some other guy. I didn't respond. Then the messages started piling up, longer, more desperate. She started hinting at how much she missed me, how she made a mistake, how she didn't realize what she had until it was gone. Classic, right? The cherry on top was when she called me one evening, trying to sound sweet and remorseful. She said all the things you'd expect. "I still care about you. We had something special. Maybe we could start over." But the truth is, she didn't give a damn about me. She just saw the success, the money, and thought she could slither back into my life like nothing happened. I let her talk for a bit, and then I just told her to go to hell. Flat out. I don't think she expected that, but the silence on the other end of the line told me all I needed to know. I hung up and never looked back. Let her live in the mess she created. But enough about her. There's someone new in my life now. I met this girl a few months ago. Let's call her Wendy. She's different. No drama. No baggage. No hidden motives. We met in the most random way, at a friend's party, and we just clicked. She's funny, smart, down to earth, and she doesn't care about the material stuff. She doesn't know much about my business yet, not the details. I've kept that part of my life under wraps. Not because I don't trust her, but because I want to make sure she's with me for me. Not for the money or the success. We've been spending a lot of time together, and yeah, I'm really starting to like her. It's nice, actually, being with someone who doesn't expect anything from me except honesty. Just being myself. It's refreshing after everything I've been through. I'm not in any rush to tell her about the business. Maybe one day, when it feels right. But for now, I'm enjoying just getting to know her, without any of the complications. So, that's where I'm at now. A year ago, I was stuck in the worst period of my life, with everything falling apart around me. And now? Now I'm running a successful business, surrounded by people who believe in what we're building. I've got my life back, and I've got something more, hope for the future. Sometimes life throws you into situations that seem impossible to survive, but trust me, if I can get through it, so can you. Believe in yourself. Believe in your ability to come out stronger. And never let anyone take away your worth. Success isn't just about money or power. It's about learning from the pain, moving forward, and becoming the best version of yourself. I learned that the hard way, but I'm grateful for the lessons, as brutal as they were. To anyone reading this, whether you're in the middle of your own mess or just trying to figure things out, keep going. Believe in the best, and don't let anyone tell you that you don't deserve it. If you enjoyed the story, please like and subscribe to the channel.